There are several stories that allow 3 questions to be asked, and if we can put the answers to these 3 questions together, we have the possibility of answering several of those questions that have been asked over these last months, and that is, what is present when stillness and movement meet, and where are we when the 3 levels of mind or existence merge in us? What is this place? First story is about that great being Li Tze, who was a student of Lao Tze, who was the author of the I Ching, of course. Now, Li Tze had a group of students around him, and he was giving them instructions. And in his instructions, he told this little story. He said there was an old man by the name of Wen. Now, Wen, at a very early age, for economic reasons, had left his home village and traveled very far away to make his fortune elsewhere. And in that far-off place, he'd started a family and prospered. But he was now quite old, and he decided that he would like to go back to find his roots, to go back to his old village. So with a few friends, he set off. And after they'd traveled a great distance, his friends decided that they would play a trick on him. So when they approached a village, his friends said to him, "Oh, look, 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 this is your home village where you were brought up." And old Master Wen gave a deep sigh. And then, as they entered the village, they said, "Oh, look, 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 there's your house that you were born in." And old Wen started to cry, tears rolling down his face. And then they came to a graveyard, and his friend said, "Look, look, there are the tombstones of your ancestors." And old Wen sobbed with great emotion. But when his friends saw his great distress, they felt a little sorry, and they admitted to him that they had merely played a trick on him. But they traveled on, and they eventually came to the village in which Wen was born. But when he arrived there, he found that there was hardly a trace of emotion. And he realized that his emotion was related to his perceptions and the belief in what his friends had told him. The second story is a story already told about that great samurai swordsman who was not only a master of the sword, but was also a master of his own teaching school. Now he was coming to an age where he had to choose a successor, and he was in the fortunate situation of having 3 sons. Now it was the custom, and it was expected, since all his 3 sons were adept in the art of swordsmanship, that he would choose one of his sons to be his successor. So he decided to test them. Now he had a room in his house that only had one doorway, and across that doorway there was a curtain. So the master swordsman placed strategically a cushion over the doorway, so that when the curtain was moved, the cushion would fall. So having this set up, the master swordsman called his eldest son. His eldest son approached the doorway, saw the cushion, carefully took it down, entered the room, and placed the cushion back where it had been. After a short while, in presence of his father, he was dismissed, and the second son was called. The second son entered the doorway, and the cushion fell, and he caught the cushion in his hands and placed it back where it had been. After a short time, with his father he was dismissed, and the third son was called. The third son entered the doorway. The cushion fell and landed on his head, but he was so adept in his swordsmanship that he had taken out his sword and severed the cushion in two before it hit the ground. The father, the great master swordsman, called his 3 sons together and said to his first son, "You will be my successor." To the second son he said, "You are well on your way to mastership. Keep up your good work." And the third son he scolded roundly for bringing shame on his family. So the questions that arise from these 2 stories is, what was it that Li Tze was imparting to his students in telling the story of Wen? Why did the master swordsman choose his first son to be his successor? And thirdly, bringing these 2 stories together, what is their relationship? Where do they meet, these 2 tales? What is the lesson, the teaching that Li Tze was imparting to his students? What have we become aware of in relationship to our perceptions and our beliefs, our conditioning? Where are we? Why did old Wen realize that his emotions were the result of his perceptions and his belief? Where are we with this? Why did the swordsman choose his first son? And what's the relationship? Where do they meet, these 2 stories? Right. Awareness, isn't it?
Almost like a non-action.
That's right.
Rather than reaction.
Yes. Awareness, isn't it? Summed up. Awareness. So we recognize this place where we're alert and present. isn't it? Alert and present. And what does that bring in terms of awareness? It has no boundaries, does it? Has no boundaries. So if we relate that to our encounters in life, and we meet someone, before it would be our awareness of maybe they've got rings through their noses and tattoos all over them. So immediately a judgment would be made and a reaction would be made. What comes first now in this place? What comes first? That was there with the eldest son that we now realize is present for us.
You kind of see the whole picture.
Yes.
You see more than just the outside now. You have a feeling about it.
That's right. Then you see the tattoos and the rings and...
So you sense, it's like,
right.
knowing.
Right. So in the first story with Wen, his belief and his perception when they're brought together brings about that reaction of the tears and the emotions and so forth. We see that as logical, isn't it? It's not there for us anymore, is it? Does that bring us closer to answering the question, what is present when stillness and movement meet? When this presence and alertness and stillness meet the life in whatever way it is, that person with it, how has it changed? Yes. Firstly, non-reactionary. We don't react from, ooh, is it? So what is it that's present in that? There's a very interesting thing that was read in the ABC News last evening, that after this Marina Abramovic, I don't know whether you've heard of her, she's an artist who in Europe set up as a room, a gallery, and she sat and gazed into the eyes of those who came for 10 minutes. The queues are down the roads for ages, and now it's captured, it's caught on around the world. People are doing it in the streets of New York and so forth. And there was a little anecdote in the newspaper, on the news yesterday, about two friends who in their coffee time decided that they would do this. They would sit and do an eye-to-eye for 10 minutes. Now the thing that has come out of that just two ordinary young people experimenting with this, was the recognition that in that connection, with that eye-to-eye, whilst observing the changing faces, maybe seeing demons or an eye moving there and so forth, which they described, the overriding thing that they both experienced, and this was just out of that one, was the sense of absence of self. They were no longer aware of a separate self in that connection. Now this is being captured around the world, which this wonderful artist has initiated with her interaction with people. And they have a little documentary about it where people will be sitting with just tears rolling out of their face, and one of these young people described how suddenly she felt a tear coming out of her eye and she wiped it off, but she didn't want to disturb her friend's concentration, so she let the tears fall, and there was no emotion related to them. There were just tears flowing. So something amazing is happening, isn't it? Don't you agree? Something that we know that can be experienced. Can be experienced. Like the wonderful story of the Zen tea master. Once you've had a taste of that, then of course you're caught, aren't you? Seduced in a wonderful way. Thank you, thank you.